We have to stop. We can't keep doing this. Picture this. It's dark outside. You're sitting at your desk or on your bed and you look at the time. It says 9:30 p.m. There are already people, classmates even, who are sleeping by this time. But not you. It's still early. You look at the pile of papers in front of you and the seemingly infinite number of tabs open in your desktop. It doesn't matter. You'll just pull an all-nighter. If you just continued working without breaks, you'll make it. You take a sip of your coffee and begin to work non-stop. For most of us, this is just the reality of the situation. Often our sleep schedule doesn't align with our school schedule, and we can't do anything about it because it's biological. Yes, it is absolutely normal to have sleepless nights sometimes as teens, especially with mountains of work. However, did you catch the problem in that statement? The sleep schedule? Maybe. Loads of work? Getting closer. We'll get to that later. No, the real problem is that we didn't notice how bad of an idea not taking breaks is. We'll discuss more of that in this episode of Think Out Loud. Good day everyone, welcome to another episode of Think Out Loud, Minds at the Mic, where we talk about life, school, and whatever thoughts come to mind, providing a platform for your ideas. I'm your host, your speaker, your friend, Mark Rebollido. With that out of the way, let's get right into the topic. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge everyone here. I appreciate you being here after a whole year of silence. Thank you for your time, effort, and you in general as a person. I am happy that you're here. So, today will be something that would be very familiar, mainly because we've talked about this in the past, but it's not a complete discussion. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by it's not a complete discussion? Well, the idea is breaks. And usually when we hear breaks, we hear about schedules, we hear about taking care of our mental health, and it's never the main idea. Often it is a supporting idea. You have the topic of mental health, and then you have breaks as to one of the solutions. You hear about the ways to schedule your time, to take breaks, such and such, as I've told you previously. The thing is, I feel like despite the abundant reminder to take breaks, that we don't fully give credit to breaks. The question is, what are breaks? What should a break look like? Because sometimes vacations are breaks. Yes, they absolutely are breaks. Taking 5 days, 10 days, a month of work after working for years, after working for a month, and you take a week off, that's completely understandable. That is what you call a break. However, what is the difference between resting? For example, you've worked all this time, you take a break for 1 week and then you come back. And you just work for a week, take a week off and then come back. Because a person working for a month could have the same stress level as a person who was working for a week given a stressful enough task. So let's have an idea of what break is. Basically, a break is just a brief stop to rejuvenate between periods of working. That is an important distinction because you might think, oh wait, I'm taking breaks. I do work for 2 days and then I take a 1 week break to recover and then I'll just wait for my projects to come in and to pile up and then I'll do them in 1 day or 3 days. Then I'll recover again. Those aren't breaks. Those are gaps. And breaks are not gaps. Break is like if we look at our schedule for the day when we go to school or when we work, we see that we don't consider going home, eating, sleeping as a break. It's called recovery. That's called the end of the day. That's the end of the work day. But we consider lunch or taking small naps in between work as breaks because those are brief gaps or stops between work. After defining what breaks are, let's just paint a picture of a typical day, and I'll explain why I want to tell you this. So, there's what you call a chronotype. A chronotype is basically what time of day you feel most alive. So, a person who is a night owl could stay up until 8, 9, 10, maybe even 2 o'clock in the morning. And a morning person might wake up at 5, but they will be up and going at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, it's just a matter of what time of day you're most energized. The reason this is important, the reason that having chronotypes is important, is because there's a basic picture of what a person's day looks like. If we go to a research published in the National Center for Biotechnology Information, or NCBI, the near and dear friend of our podcast, we can see this. We can see this graph of the day. If you look at there's definitely a morning person, there's definitely an evening person, there's an evening person, and there's an in-between. And as you can see, if you're not a self-identified morning person, your peak is between 1 to 4 or in the afternoon, to make it simpler. And the idea is that those graphs show you where you're most energized. So if we look at here, morning people are most energized, not at 7. You might think it's 7. No. Morning people are most energized somewhere at 8. Interestingly enough, they're not energized at 5 o'clock. They're energized at 8, 9, exactly at the start of the day. So by the end of the day, they are exhausted. We can argue that the 8-hour work week is tailored specifically to morning people, expecting that being a morning person is like the expected type. You might say that we have to be awake, we have to be up in this time. Like, there's no inclusivity for night owls. But moving on from that fact, we move on to night owls. Night owls have a later peak. If you look at the evening and then the in-between, they have nearly the same peak. Nearly, not exactly. You might think it's actually 12. You might think it's 12 o'clock. But no, it's actually funny because it's not 12 o'clock. It's 9 to 10. Then by 12, that's your first drop. So people who stay up past 12 are burning the candle at both ends, one might say, because no person, even if they're a night owl, can survive sleeping past 12. Yes, there's still exceptions to the rule, but in general, it's hard, especially without supplements like coffee or a 5-hour energy drink, something like that. Why am I telling you this? Because the peaks need to be protected and optimized. If you look at throughout the day, the problem is that if you're a night owl, you cannot overwork yourself in the morning because you want to have enough energy to optimize your evenings. If your energy is at its highest at 9 to 10, you don't want to overwork yourself at 4, at 5. Or if you're a morning person, you don't want to burn yourself out early in the morning and then leave the entire 9, 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock as a dead person or a completely exhausted person. Because simply put, it's not a good way to live. It's not a healthy way to live. You might think, oh well, I'll just won't work that hard. I won't put in that much effort so that I can do tasks properly. The thing is, you can't do that because you need to put effort in your work for it to work well. Especially in mundane tasks, especially in rigorous and repetitive tasks, such as if you're a banker, or if you're a student, or you're a teacher and you're transcribing stuff. That needs effort because you need to be alert, you need to be wary of patterns, but you need to also do that repeatedly. So, how do we maintain that level of strength throughout the day? Those are done through breaks. Funnily enough, breaks are actually something that teachers, that bosses, that business owners want. It's something that they want, and if they don't want that, they should want it. And we'll discuss why. The way I want to discuss this is using the S.T.O.P analysis. What do I mean by S.T.O.P? S-T-O-P. S, stress builds up during the day. T, time is not well spent. O, overwhelming sense of exhaustion. And P, problem is worsened. Those are the 4 points. So let's start with stress builds up. If we look at these studies, there's a lot of studies actually about this. Stress builds up over time. The cortisol in our body, the adrenaline in our body, the intense sense of doom, the anxiety, it all builds up. We're supposed to have that, but we're also supposed to get rid of that when we sleep or when we take breaks. But since, again, sometimes it's not compatible, it's breaks that helps us with that. Stress builds up over time. It's not something that you can sleep off in one go. Sometimes stress moves over the other day. And if you're stressed enough, sometimes sleep is not enough. Sometimes you need to actually stop for a bit. If you don't, stress accumulates. Stress will not go away. and you will feel on edge.
And
Stress is also linked to burnout. Burnout is when you feel so exhausted that you feel like you can't work. And why is that? Because you've drained all your energy, you've drained all of the things that you can provide, you've drained all of the energy that you have, all the physical, mental strength that you have to this one thing. And your brain is a muscle. We might think that it's abstract, it's cerebral, it's something that doesn't require exercise, but the thing is, it's still a muscle. And exhausting a muscle like that is not healthy. That is the problem with that situation. And stress is only removed through breaks. The same with muscles, your muscle recovery needs a break. By not taking breaks, we allow ourselves to have this buildup of stress over time and we get ourselves into burnout. And the problem with that is the more you burn out, the faster you reach that point of burnout. For example, there was a time, I was grade 8, where I had worked the entire week or entire month and I was burnt out. I tried writing something again, I tried editing, I tried everything, but I feel unmotivated. I feel like I'm exhausted and I'm at the brink of breaking. Like I just want to sleep the entire week. And then I recovered. The problem is this, I tried doing that again, and I believe after just 2 weeks, my body was like, hey, I know where this is going. Let's burn out. Yeah, let's just burn out. No more work for you. I was like, why? Why is my burning out this fast? I wasn't burning out this fast a few months ago. Just because I've done it so many times that burnout is something that happens immediately. To protect you from stressing yourself out much, they just burn out immediately. That is why we need to take breaks. Another thing is, time is not well spent. If we look at our chart once again, and if we look at a research written by Torque, we can actually see that our mental capacity declines over the day. Some of us have an increase in mental capacity and cognitive abilities throughout the day, but that doesn't mean that it is routinely going to be like that. If we are not taking breaks, we don't spend our time well because, for example, we work 3 hours straight. On that last hour, on that last 30 minutes, you will be as productive as if you've done it only for 10, 15 minutes. You'll be half as productive, half as capable. Why? Because you didn't take breaks. So basically, you're squeezing out 2-hour level of quality on a 3-hour work because you didn't take breaks. However, if you worked for 2 hours and took breaks in between those 2 hours, like every 10 minutes or every 15 minutes or so, using the Pomodoro technique or something that you have studied or something that you think works for you, you will get a 3-hour quality of work because you're able to rejuvenate your brain. So your capabilities are retained. You're not fully exhausted. By the time it's 3 hours, you get 2 hours and 30 minutes worth of effort or worth of quality, or 3 hours, maybe even 4, because you're able to preserve your energy like a runner, actually, like a runner. If we look at how runners or marathon runners run or do their laps, we see that in the beginning they speed up and in the middle they actually jog. And then you can see people running past them and they're like, yo, they're not gonna win. They're like the 7th person, 10th person in the race. And then suddenly you see the other 9 people in front who were running just drop and become exhausted and not finish the race. But this person who was in 10th place maintained their energy. So by the time they are near the finish line, they speed up. They are able to push through. And by the time they are at the end, they're exhausted, but they were able to win standing up. That is the same with us. If we just not take breaks, instead of having those moments of jogging, so to speak, we just keep running, and then by the end, we just drop. We burn out. So we don't spend our time well. And if we just take breaks, for example, like that, after that 4 hours, take an hour of break, and then we can continue working. Unlike if we've worked for 3 hours straight, that's the entire day. We have to sleep. That's it. Can't do anything more. And one of the other things as well is that we have an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. What do I mean by an overwhelming sense of exhaustion? Well, the same with how stress builds up during the day, the burnout not only happens faster, it actually becomes longer. Because the stress, it's like our muscles. The fatigue in our muscles, if we keep using it, will break down. And there will be a point where that muscle is thoroughly sore that you can't move it. And that happens to our brain. Our brain is thoroughly exhausted that it just needs more time to recover, because previously it could have recovered faster when it was healthier, but now it's less healthy. Now it's more sickly. And a sickly person needs more time to be healthy. It's basically the idea of how not taking breaks overwhelms us. As well as when we don't take breaks, we feel overwhelmed because we feel like it is non-stop. So we feel disappointed while we're doing it. It's a matter of psychology as well. It's a mindset. By working non-stop, we feel like we've been consumed by work, and we feel depressed, and we feel tired, we feel apathetic towards it. So we become overwhelmed. Lastly, problem is worsened. The problem is absolutely worsened because when we don't take breaks, there's essentially two types of why we don't take breaks. There's also a third type that most of us suffer with, but we'll discuss that later. So there's two types. Either you're cramming or you're a workaholic. You might think crammers do things at the last minute. Workaholics don't stop working. They're completely different. I say nay to that. It's not a matter of how fast they're working or anything. It's a matter of their mindset while they're doing it. And if we study how they're similar, we look at their schedules. Crammers and workaholics have bad or ineffective scheduling. Crammers find the rush of doing stuff as a good motivator. So instead of doing something immediately, they will feel lethargic throughout because they don't feel urgent, and then the moment is like saying, hey, do this at the last minute or else you will fail. They will do that because they will feel motivated. Workaholics find cramming work all the time as an excellent way to be productive. So crammers do take simple works, cram them in one day. Workaholics take a lot of work and then cram them throughout the days. So they're not different, just in different time spans. Workaholics just get more done, but still a matter of they're breaking themselves. Additionally, workaholics and crammers are avoiding something. Workaholics often use work to escape their problems and emotional turmoils. Again, holics. It's an addiction. Crammers avoid work because they feel unmotivated, and feeling uncomfortable for long periods is not something that they find enticing. And why should they? But this promotes the mindset of, if it's not urgent, I won't do it, which harms them. Problems such as money, mental health, or anything that doesn't have a complete schedule go unresolved for them because it feels uncomfortable to solve. There's no deadline, so they don't do it. So they are avoiding something. Essentially, by cramming or by tolerating their schedule, they harm themselves. And finally, intense burnout. This is something that we've tackled again. Intense burnouts, when you are working non-stop, becomes longer, stronger, and just more difficult to deal with. So we can see that crammers and workaholics are nearly the same people, because by allowing themselves to not take breaks, they tolerate the problem. I remember, again, when I was working a month non-stop and I finished doing all my tasks, I was like, whoa, I could just keep doing this. I could just keep cramming all my tasks every day. I'll just take 5 projects and then do them every single day. And now you hear how stupid that sounds, right? Because I basically allowed myself to suffer. You might think, well, that's productive. That's something that you should be happy about. But no, it's not an effective way of scheduling. And I don't address the problem. The problem was that I wanted to feel productive. And wanting to feel productive is different from being productive. Because being productive is knowing that at some point you need to stop. Feeling productive is at some point you can't stop because you will not feel productive. So I don't address the problem. I don't get to the root of the issue. Instead of tackling my sense of wanting to feel productive all the time, I just did the stuff that harmed me. How do we take breaks then? We need to seek out our chronotypes. We have to take time on our projects. We have to organize or optimize our day. We need to have positive and proactive solutions. S.T.O.P. So first and foremost, we need to seek out our chronotypes. Again, I've talked about this earlier. And the reason is that you need to have this. You need to see this. Are you a morning person? Are you an evening person? Truly see what time of day your energy peaks, your energy is at its highest. Because you need to know how to schedule your time. You cannot put a lot of work in the morning and then have nothing in the evening, but have more energy in the evening than in the morning, because there's dissonance there. It's not lining up. So first and foremost, you need to know your chronotype so that you know when to take breaks, you know when to sleep, you know when to eat. It's basically a biological cycle. And if you look at this, during our teens, there's actually an adjustment of sleep schedule, so there's a problem there. So seek out our chronotype. Second, take time on our project and test out motivation techniques. Why do we need to test out motivation techniques? It's because we need to have the motivation to do stuff and not rely on pressure. Yes, we might feel pressure from the fear of failure, the fear of not doing anything, but the real pressure, like time pressure, something that is concrete, those types of pressure, we can't rely on those pressures to motivate us. We need proper motivating tactics. And we have to take our time. And by that, I don't mean to slow down your work while you're cramming. I mean this, start early and then just meticulously work. And you might say, what if I become lazy? What if I procrastinate? That's the purpose of the motivating techniques. By having an effective motivational technique, maybe Pomodoro, maybe a PERMA, you will be able to be active earlier and you will be able to do your task earlier. And then we have to organize our day and optimize our day. So the way we do this is we need to see what tasks need to be done with the most effectiveness and place those at our peaks. So essentially, by listing down our tasks and then ranking them by their importance or by their difficulty to do, and then putting timestamps on them, like 1 hour for this project, 2 hours for this project, we can place them at our peaks so that we can schedule our day and we can hit our strides properly. And those projects are done correctly. So, schedule now comes back into play. And lastly, you need to have positive thinking and proactive solutions. Never think low of yourself. There's a study that states that by expecting stress, you become more stressed. So if we don't expect bad things, we won't get too caught up in them. Don't expect bad things. Be ready for them, but don't expect them because that will negate the motivation techniques. If you are ready for a bad day, you cannot be motivated because you are waiting for a bad day. Instead of wanting to thrive, you are wanting to survive. So that's a different thing. And you need to have proactive solutions. And by that, I mean, there will be times where your schedule doesn't fit you. And instead of waiting for your schedule to fix itself, you actually look at the schedule, you look at the problems, you look at why you're having that issue, and then change your schedule accordingly. Take initiative in working. So you place your importance on your mental health. You don't allow things to slip. That's the S.T.O.P method. But we need to tackle something. The elephant in the room, schools have a bunch of tasks that we can't keep up with. Yeah, sure, your student could do it, but not everyone. Who knows, maybe that student is also hanging by a thread. So what do? Aside from scheduling your time the best you can, be open to your teachers. Communicate your needs. They will be terrifying, hard to work with, sometimes unresponsive. However, by trying, you allow the possibility of work being pushed or changed and helping others. Additionally, talk to your student body. Use that student outlet to help other students with their schedules as well. If the issue is the institution, changes in that institution is needed, which are done through professional means. So we need to communicate our problems. Sometimes our schedule is not enough. Sometimes we need help. And those help can only be given if we ask. Bottom line, we need to take breaks. We need to stop ourselves from thinking that it's okay to work tirelessly. Remember, the difference between you and the best version of yourself is how you manage your time. You might be working a lot, but not sleeping enough, and you will not reach your peak. Be wise and be careful. Be happy with yourself and be proactive. Know that you are enough and know that you can do this. Thank you for listening to that episode of Think Out Loud. I hope you enjoy it. If you like it, you can click like and share it with your friends. If you really like it, you can subscribe and leave a comment down below about what your thoughts are. Thank you so much for listening once again after 1 year of hiatus. Thank you so much again and have a good day. This is Rebollido signing off.